Okay, it says
Audio.
we are now live. And okay, let's see if we're ready. I'm recording it too, just in case YouTube acts up. Now I'm recording. Let me just get a little so you can see. Right there. There's Sarah. Okay, perfect. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Liberty Madison, that tech girl. I'm here with Data AF, and I have a lovely guest with me today, and we've got Sarah. So I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself and share with us what exactly she's excited about today.
Thank you very much, Liberty, and I appreciate the introduction. I recently graduated with my PhD in Environmental Health Sciences in the School of Public Health at UC Berkeley. And since graduating, I became really, really interested in data science and specifically in relation to health. And I've been attending a lot of meetups around this topic and around health technology in general. And at one of these meetings, I had the great privilege of meeting Liberty by chance at a meetup called Data Science and Machine Learning for Women. And at this meetup, we also had the great opportunity to meet Corey Bargmann, who is the Chief Science Officer of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which has a new initiative that is being run by Priscilla Chan and Mark Zuckerberg to improve not only K-12 education in STEM, but also create open source software and resources for universities and researchers worldwide.
Yes, exactly. So it was a pleasure, absolute pleasure attending that event. It was so fantastic to see what the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative is working on and to see how they're bridging separate communities. Because you think of a more academia and academic style community, which obviously is the sciences, and then you look at how they're bringing the startup culture and the startup life to that and bridging it together. And I'm excited to see the outcome from that. And they explained a lot of initiatives and universities working together and being able to tap into some open source data and available data that they hadn't had access to before. So that was very, very exciting. But before we get into that, I want to talk about your work and what you're doing. And like you just said, you just graduated at Berkeley. And how are you weaving data science into what you're doing right now in the health industry?
So during my PhD, unfortunately, due to funding constraints, we were not able to work at the capacity that industry is working at right now with big data. And while I was able to do data analysis during my PhD, again, it was not at the same capacity. And I've been really, really interested in seeing the strategies that are being used today using artificial intelligence and machine learning to solve and predict disease outcomes much more powerfully than I think that a lot of academic institutions can. And I think that even outside the field of health, there is a lot of work that's being done in what's called transfer learning, where we can take the algorithms that are being used, let's say on Amazon and for other predictions for consumerism, and move them into the health space, because the same type of strategies can be used in that space. So I'm really interested in that, and just the fact that I think that the data science community is doing a really good job in trying to make the platforms and the software and the algorithms as open and transparent as possible, and in doing so, allow as many people who are interested in the topic to access it. But the question that I wanted to go over with you today was more about how we can engage Gen Z and millennials in this process.
And I'm glad that you touched on that, because I was just going to kind of segue into when you said that we have the open source data. We have this data available to those who are interested in it. I was going to come back with you and say, how do we get people interested in it? And that is how we connected with Data AF And it's a true initiative to not just excite interest, but excite curiosity and encourage people young people to actually move towards data professions. And a lot of people really engage in a way that maybe they've been accustomed to for decades.
Right.
However, we know this because we're in the tech space. You can't engage at any point that we're in, any touch point that we're in now going forward the same way that you've done it in the past, because so much has changed. And it changes at the rate that we experience and the rate that younger people, experience. It's nowhere near what it was in the past. So we just have to really ignite them where they are and engage them where they are, how they want to be engaged, and not how someone else may feel that they need to be engaged. So with Data AF, what we've done is we've identified the core kind of competencies, if you will, of a particular demographic. What's the number one, I guess, gripe that people always say when it comes to Gen Z or millennial? Like, they can't even walk straight. They're always on their phone. They won't even look at this billboard that I spent $1 billion on because they're on their phone. They're not looking at the TV commercial because they're on their phone and they don't have a TV. So they're on their phone. So what we've done is we've taken everything. We've done a lot of research, and we've taken the data and make the data work for us to have an output of more data scientists. So what we've done is we've targeted a particular area, knowing where they are and how to reach them, and we create data-driven content. So with the content, it's just not a blog post. No one cares about your blog post, So a lot of companies, a lot of legacy brands will be like, oh, we wrote a blog post on our website. I'm like, I don't know about you, but I don't know the last time I went to a company's single website to look at anything they've done. If they didn't talk about it on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram, I probably won't know that it happened. So that's a key component where we're focused on. So we focus on, with Data AF, we focus on 3 core groups. So our 3 core groups are data scientist hopefuls, data scientists, and data enthusiasts. So people are really, really, really excited about data, and they're excited about data because we generate so much data. And I'm sure you've seen the numbers. In the past 2 years, we've generated more data than the history of the world. And it's just because everything that we're doing right now can be measured with technology. So that's why we've generated so much data. But at this point, it's just not about generating data. We already know that data exists. Data's a thing. I'm data, you're data. We already get it. The only thing that we're going to do going forward is to actually read that data and to make sense of the data and allow this data to paint a picture. And that's where we need data scientists. So when you look at the numbers right now, we're at a shortage of, we expected that we're going to need over 1 million new data scientists by 2020. We don't have that because they're not trained in that aspect. And what Data AF is hoping to do, and what we're working towards doing, is actually exciting people and engaging them where they want to pursue a career as a data scientist, a data engineer, statistician, where they can focus on core things as predictive analytics, data mining, cybersecurity, data security, and focus on that, because data isn't just subject to one sector or one kind of area in the ecosystem. Data is across all platforms. So it can be, you can be a data scientist at a tech company. I would say a generic tech company where you would think of a company as a tech company, but we both know that every company is a tech company. Once you're online, you're moving and activating like a tech company, whether you're Bank of America or Target, but maybe you wouldn't traditionally think of them as tech companies as you would like Facebook or Airbnb or something of that nature. So that's why we're excited about data, and why we're excited about data scientists is because there's such a huge gap from where the supply and demand falls, but there's a huge gap as for how do you recruit them and how do you engage them. And traditional methods are not the way to go.
Great.
Yeah, so.
And I'm even interested in taking a step. So that's the very, as you described it to me, the very top of this funnel.
Yes.
Going a step forward, once you engage them and they're excited,
yes,
they're data enthusiasts or data scientists, or the third one, data.
So data science is hopeful, because that's someone who, they may be an engineer, they may be in some sector, but they're not actually a data scientist, right? Okay. They're hopeful. They aspire to be a data scientist. And you have your actual data scientist, someone who's actively working with that title in the space. And then you have your data enthusiast, which could be someone who has no interest in being a data scientist.
Right.
They have no interest in being one at all. However, they love data. Maybe they work with data. Maybe they love data because maybe they run with a Fitbit. Maybe they view themselves as a fully quantified self. You know, they are really taking into consideration their personal data to change their lifestyle.
Okay.
And plus, I just meet a lot of people who just love data.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's a lifestyle.
Right. I'm just absorbing what you said. And so to me,
it's just kind of odd, right?
It's true.
Pretty crazy.
This is where we're moving. But even think about data. So I've been to meetups where there's been a discussion around who's at fault in some of these interviews, where the employers want something of a data scientist and the interviewee has a certain background in data science and they may not connect. So is it the interviewer's fault for not believing in the interviewee that the background that they have is sufficient and that they can learn on their feet, or is it the interviewee's fault that they don't have a broad enough background to be able to tackle the questions immediately that the interviewer wants or may think that they want?
You actually bring up two good points. I want to touch on the fact that you said may think that they want, because a lot of the interviewers may not know exactly what they're looking for, because a lot of people just in general, they don't ask the questions they're truly trying to get to.
Exactly.
So that's human conditioning. We can just kind of say that. Yeah. So on the other end of that, I will say that a lot of people just in general don't understand the full scope of what a data scientist does or can do. So when you understand what they can do, then you can work within those parameters and go from that. But if you have different expectations and they have different skill sets, then how do you meet in the middle? Because you can't.
Exactly.
And a lot of people will think, oh, I can get an engineer to do this. You can't. You think, oh, I can get like, no, you really want, I'll get a data engineer, or I'll just get a traditional engineer to kind of take a look at this, because it's all big data. It's all tech stuff, right? No.
Right. That's exactly what a software engineer said. He said, the people in my department at this meetup, he was just talking about his particular company at this meetup. He said, they are not qualified to be interviewing for data scientists, and yet they are. That's all we have.
Okay. I'm glad that he.
And he was fully willing to admit it. And then at another meetup, at a fireside chat that I went to with an ex-Googler was there, who had given presentations for Larry Page, who he said Larry Page, like within the first 2 minutes of his slide deck, could point out exactly like which axes of a graph was wrong and how the metrics were wrong and what they were analyzing. And, the man probably hasn't coded it who knows how long, but he's a better data scientist than everyone else. And what this ex-Googler's point was, is that it is the critical thinking skills that need to, that is the expertise of being a data scientist, not necessarily being able, coding is certainly
a component of it, but it's not the full scope of it.
It's not the full scope of it, but I think that the curriculum that we need to harness these data scientists with is how to scope a problem, any problem, like a math word problem, right? Mm-hmm. And how to design their experiments so that they can ultimately answer the questions, even if it's not necessarily what the employer even thinks, like you were saying before, thinks that they need, but the true problem of what the business is having.
I think that can be two areas too, because I think on the other end of that, so you have the educational aspect, and then you have the problem that the scientist is solving. I think the scientist at the end of the experiment could present, this is what you really wanted. This is the question that you were truly going for, and this is why. So they can kind of go back on this end, but also on what you were saying about the education of a data scientist. So I've been, obviously, with Data researching a lot of different programs across the country of how they're being trained, because I'm curious with this, right? How are they being trained, and what's the best way to go about being trained as a data scientist? And there's so many different options. There are options such as traditional universities, and boot camps, code camp, data camp, you know, self-taught, which I'm a fan of. I'm a huge fan of being self-taught, because I feel like everything that you need to know is online. We don't live. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a ton of discipline, but we don't live in an age where information is a scarcity. Information, we're not in the information age anymore. We're out of that. We're right now in truly a data science field, just in general in life, because we need to make sense of all of the information that we have. We're in a knowledge age. How can you apply this information in knowledge? Right. So I definitely think, as far as their training goes, they can either go to, and well, looking at the traditional schools and boot camps, I've noticed that a lot of the traditional universities have been rolling out programs similar to boot camps to give that same feel that a lot of people want, because they want those super laser focused targeted programs that are going to help them accelerate themselves to the next level as a data scientist. A lot of the traditional universities, when you look at it, you have a 2-year program that's promising you the role or title as a data scientist, and then you go to other data programs where it is a 12-week program. So if you're someone who doesn't necessarily know, which way do you go? Right. What are they covering? What are they not covering? So I think if you're not familiar with what you need to know, if you're a hiring manager, how can you know what to do? Huge disconnect. It's a huge disconnect, and I feel it's just a huge disconnect where there's got to be some way to make that intersection.
And even depending on the size of the company, they may be asking the same person who is the data scientist to also be the data engineer along that.
But they shouldn't do that.
No, they shouldn't. But they are asking at sometimes that to be part of the job description. And ultimately, what I think is going to happen as this data scientist field explodes is that the phrase data scientist will be partitioned out even into smaller pieces, perhaps.
It's already started.
Yeah. And especially because data cleaning right now is what, 50 to 80% of the time spent. Yes. So you're having these highly trained people do very, very mundane and difficult work. Now, the interesting thing is that part is going to be automated, what's been predicted in the next maybe 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
So perhaps we're going to see this bubble.
See, I love that you touched on that, because I was talking with some folks over at Salesforce, and you know, they're huge on their new product, Einstein, which is supposed to be the data science killer, right?
Right.
And so their whole kind of bet is that in the next 5 to 10 years, they can automate what's going on, whether it be with deep learning or machine learning, and they won't necessarily have to have data scientists. But I have to disagree with that, and the reason I disagree with that is because you always are going to need humans to do. We may not have a need for 2 million data scientists, but we will have a need for that particular role, because we will always need people to do clear data visualizations and be able to communicate those findings.
True. So I'm wondering then, thinking back to your model with the data science hopefuls and then the data enthusiasts, how we would harness them then with the correct curriculum so that they can speak the jargon and really prepare them for what's coming in the future. So
that's a really good question.
Yeah. If we are moving this fast, then we need to predict now what it's going to look like 5 to 10 years from now, and prepare these people that are super excited about the data science field to.
Yes, that's such a good question. With the data scientist hopefuls, so with the hopefuls, they don't even know they want to be data scientists right now, right? They just know that maybe they have a background in statistics or analytics, or it doesn't really matter. Maybe they're in a CS program. I don't know, but they're not sure what to do. So with DataAF, we're engaging them and letting them know the amazing things and opportunities that's coming, like you said, in the next 5 to 10 years that they need to prepare for now, and that they can be a front runner in this conversation, right? So how we prepare them, one, definitely is engaging them and letting them know, like I mentioned, the opportunities that's coming in the future. The curriculum, I think that's definitely an area of conversation and collaboration. And I say collaboration because it's an area of collaboration between us as tech leaders and us as educators, but it's also a collaboration between employers. So if we have an opportunity to sit at the table with employers and fully maybe mind map and flesh out exactly what they're looking for, we can equip them and to help them on that level so they'll know exactly what they're looking for. And then we can create the absolute ideal curriculum that everyone is satisfied with.
That's a really interesting perspective. So it may be almost not vocational per se, but that there has to be a lot more crosstalk between industry and the university sectors, or however, if people aren't choosing.
That's not vocational.
Huh?
It does have the element of.
Sounds like it.
Does. It's ironic because it seems like we're going backwards.
We're not.
From vocational to you need to go to a broader scope university to now we're going to narrow it down.
I mean, honestly, I've been listening to some of these YouTubers who talk about digital marketing and 17, 18, right? They're very, very happy taking some digital marketing courses and then earning a fine career, at least for right now, without attending a 4-year school. And who's to say that that direction is wrong?
That's true. Definitely. I think.
I mean, maybe that is the new vocational direction.
Are you saying that the new vocational direction may be online education or?
Online education in the tech space. In the tech space, I'm trying to think if there would be something equivalent to data science. Like, where along the data science pipeline would you not need a PhD in physics in order to?
That's interesting.
A really pertinent part.
I think that's very interesting for a few reasons. It is one with, for example, I'm sure you're familiar with the Data Incubator. They are the Harvard of data science boot camps. And it's because they only accept PhDs.
Right.
You have to have a PhD in order to apply and to be accepted. There's so many people that do not get accepted into the Data Incubator.
And do you know what a lot of that was? Data cleaning. A lot of data cleaning and then very little algorithm work. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that on my API computer without crashing it multiple times because I didn't know what I was doing. And point being, I'm wondering if there's steps along the pipeline that everybody can do.
So I say that point to say, I work with Data Incubator, and I'm very familiar with their cohorts. And I was actually having a chat with a cohort yesterday from the Data Incubator, and I wanted to get more information as to how he was accepted into this program. He's been studying for 9 to 12 months on his own.
Yeah, sure.
And bringing up what you're saying about online courses. And that's why I mentioned earlier, I believe that anything you need to find, all the information you need to find, it is online. You can do that and train yourself. But the one reason that I want to bring up is the one reason that he applied for Data Incubator was he didn't want to go on the journey in a solo fashion. He wanted to be around other people to have the community, That was his number one reason. He wanted to find like-minded people who were solving problems using data.
Right.
And it's similar to what you said earlier. So I think the education, it goes back to group-based projects and project-based learning.
Yes.
So that's where I would suggest to definitely lead the data scientist hopefuls into that, present those problems to them. So for example, saying, because the number one, maybe number one or number two, but the number one or two uses for data science is huge in public transport. So public transportation, when you take all of the data that's available, whether you're running trains, buses, cars, things like that, and people don't really think about that, but they have a massive data science team running citywide transportation. And even transportation such as what we're accustomed to as Uber and Lyft, they run everything, whether it be their AI or machine learning, but they've got core data scientists who lead everything that you're doing at a touch of your app. Right. So I would definitely say giving and presenting them real world questions and real world problems and letting them see how the data can work for them. I think that was the best use of education.
I agree with you. And just to add to that, and going back to the critical thinking aspect, I think that it's important that there becomes some sort of convention around approaching the problem and discussing with the data scientists prior to running the experiment. Because what I've heard a lot in the field is that a lot of the times, those who collected the data can't even answer the question that they originally wanted, because if they want miles per hour and they only got the miles and not the per hour, you can't ultimately.
And that goes into a big problem that I see a lot of data scientists face, is access to data. And access to the proper data, because right. Without the proper data, how do you have a data set? Right. How can you actively, I'm sorry about that, 1 second. Okay, how can you actively really focus on, like you said, answering the question and getting the proper outcome if you don't have the proper data? I don't know how you could do that. It just doesn't return what you want.
Right. Right. But I agree with what you're saying. This like project-based learning, where from the conception of the project, mm-hmm. students would be engaged in discussing what type of data would even need to be collected. Like those type of questions and those positions are going to need to exist.
Yes. I think what you were saying, what type of data, I think that in itself, without going to like completely down the funnel, that is itself is an excellent exercise, because that could eliminate so much dark data of data that doesn't make sense and that you don't need.
Exactly.
Eliminate that if you can fix this and really fix it on the front end.
And then those type of people become the Larry Page, essentially.
Oh,
they don't need to know how to code. What I'm trying to say is, and if Einstein ultimately takes over, which is obviously debatable, then as long as you can speak the jargon, well, there's going to become like heavy data experts. That's what I'm afraid of. And that the field won't open up to just anybody. It's going to become a lot more closed. But there will still be positions around data that are going to be needed, but it may not be as technically heavy as we think, because it's all going to be automated. So we just need to build more critical thinking around the beginning of the pipeline of data entry toward, and as you were saying at the end, with presenting the data, having visuals for the data, communicating the data, like those are the pieces where humans are going to ultimately be in the loop again.
Well, I think that you're absolutely correct, because you're saying we can do a full funnel for now. And then in the event that we can't do a full funnel 5 to 10 years from now, then you need to hone in on this portion where you actually have, you can understand the front end side, and then you're saying and the back end side, let the back end side be your visualization and how you're communicating it. And how is that kind of what you're
Yeah.
I would agree. I definitely would agree with that, because the way that Einstein's moving right now, that's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for that, and I don't see why they wouldn't be successful at it to a certain degree. And we also have to look at the fact that we can't just look at where we are today. I like what you said earlier about looking where we will be in 5 to 10 years. Right. And I think we're just right now at the beginning, even though everyone thinks, oh, data science is a buzzword. It's not a buzzword when it affects your ROI.
Right.
That's the way I like to close all my talks. I'm like, it's not a buzzword when it affects your ROI. There you go. Because you can't argue with that.
Right.
So, and a lot of people.
That's not hype.
Huh?
That's not hype anymore.
It's not, right? That's P&L. That's not hype. So I think when you have the opportunity to, and this goes back to recruiters, this are the hiring managers. Yes. When you clearly understand what it is you're trying to do and why you need a data scientist, because there's different levels that companies need data scientists. Maybe you're a startup and you're not sure if you need a data scientist, or maybe you're.
I spoke with them.
Yes, or maybe you're
a company gotten now like $100 million more and only had one data scientist when I spoke with them.
There you go.
And we're very happy with that because they're interested in growth. And that's something that I have to wrap my head around too, coming from academia. That not everybody is interested in like long-term outcomes and, you know, monitoring and measuring over the course of.
But you can't change what you can't measure.
This is true, but at certain stages in industry, I think more than measuring and proving proof of principle, which again in academia you do first, in industry you grow first.
But I will also add to that. It doesn't have to be either or. So my stance on that is you need a data scientist from the beginning. So you need one to not just steer you to where you're going to go, but you're moving fast, right?
And you're growing fast, collecting the right data. Right. So why do you just need just one? The design could be entirely wrong if you don't have them.
Exactly. Or, and I've come from the startup world, so I'm a huge fan of just do. But as you're doing, you're growing. You're collecting mass data, mass customers, your customer acquisition's high, you're moving, you're shaking, you're doing your thing. You just need to organize that and to keep that. And why do it later? When you could have read this, data differently, seen it differently, and maybe add a new product, launch a new feature. Maybe you didn't add a new product. Maybe don't launch that new feature. So I just think it's something you should do from the beginning and not wait until the end. So I would definitely say that. But I think, so can you share the story that you were sharing with me about the call that you had?
Yes.
That really sparked this whole, we've been on a journey today.
We what?
So we've been on quite the journey.
Yes, we have. We have. So what sparked this today was I was telling Liberty about a call that I had right prior to speaking with her, and actually it was 5 minutes late, and apologizing because I was speaking with a former undergraduate student that I had been mentoring while she was an undergrad and I was a graduate student. And now she is a graduate student and facing some of the same challenges that I did during graduate school. However, I believe that she's going about the whole process much more gracefully and thinking about her next steps a lot more carefully than I was when I was in her position, and being a lot less scared, even though she is a biologist by training and super interested in nutrition and health, not being scared to engage with computer scientists, not being scared to engage with data engineering herself and getting a head start on coding, getting a head start on data analysis and all these things, all these hard skills that she knows she's going to need in the future, particularly if she decides to leave academia. And I was commending her for doing that. And she said, it's so hard, Sarah, and it's not where my heart is. And it's true. But when I went to another meetup this past week, it was the winner or a top competitor at Kaggle. The man has his PhD in physics. He was analyzing some microscopy slides and, you know, did a great job at predicting whether they were disease related or not using machine learning. And somebody raised their hand and said, can you tell me a little bit more about the domain? And he said, oh yeah, this was like a year ago. I don't even remember. I mean, he's not a biologist, nor was that the most interesting part for him. The most interesting part was segmentation of the actual image itself.
Or data scientist, yeah,
Exactly, and that's fine. And while I believe that the founder of Kaggle has given talks saying that, in fact, most of the winners are domain experts with very little machine learning or less machine learning background than one would expect, I have to differ in thinking that in the future, domain expertise may, again, need to be at the front end and the back end, like we were talking about, like helping design the experiments and at the end providing inference. But in the middle, along the way, I have a feeling that it's going to become very, very centered in having a strong background in computer science and engineering.
I definitely agree with that. And also, I'll add too that I was at an event at Metis, and for folks who don't know, that's a data science school, and they're one of the ones who don't require you to have a PhD or anything like that to come. They just have pre-work. So if you can complete the pre-work, then you can apply.
Right.
And one of the people that were successful at their program was a young man who came from a film background. He was making movies in LA. So he didn't have a computer science background. He didn't have any sort of engineering, I guess what you would call traditional engineering skills. Wow. And he was able to teach himself how to leverage R, leverage Python, and focus and really go through their pre-work. And he went through the actual course. And so now he works as a data scientist. And I know that's kind of a far reach, but I still think that it's great because you don't necessarily have to have a background in engineering or computer science. Obviously, you should have a background in engineering, computer science if you're watching this, but you don't have to. You can come from any background, whether it be film, philosophy, maybe you're not watching. All right. Everyone else who did not major in English literature, come on, become a data scientist. So I think that it was just a really good example.
Definitely.
For him to do that. So that's really exciting. And one of the things that really touched me about your story was the mentorship that you had.
Right. And I forgot until having spoken with her again how much I enjoy mentoring and how much I would enjoy continuing to do it in this space and helping design curriculum that can engage everyone in this material that we now have, as you said, that's entirely accessible, entirely open to everyone. It's just a matter of finding the right venue.
It's just a matter of people knowing, because I love that you brought that up again. I'll say this before we close it out, is when you say having it accessible, that's so key because a lot of people just don't know.
Exactly.
And that seems to be when people are like, let's demystify data science. We have to demystify it. The tools have been around for a while. Putting it together with the title, like the brand redesign, if you will.
I think so.
Data science.
I think that's all it needs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely having the awareness and engagement. Then I think we can fill up these boot camps and classrooms and get people really, really excited about the data movement. So with Data AF, we look forward to having a very, very fun, extremely fun engagement, because it's not all about data sets. It's about the love of just data in general and the love of the data culture and the people who love data and just fun around it, obviously with some datathons mixed in, but it's just really, really engaging.
Awesome. I hope to continue to be part of your movement.
Yes, absolutely.
Into your circle.
I know. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to connect and tell people where they can find you, find more about you, and maybe they have some data questions and they want to, to get that encouragement like you did with that young lady on the phone today.
Absolutely. I am currently on LinkedIn right now. I haven't set up other social networks, but I will take liberty.
You will do that.
I will work on that. I will work on that. You can reach me always at Sarah Ilse, I-L-S-E, Daniels @gmail.com too.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, this has been such a great conversation about the future of data scientists, because we already know data science is a thing, but who will lead the conversation for the next generation?
Right.
That's Data AF. Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate it. I'm Liberty Madison, that tech girl with Data AF, and this has been an amazing chat about the future of data scientists.